Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Sivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Gnam Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hare Om Tat Sat Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan Ki Jai Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Hare Krishna. Last week we saw how Dhritarashtra quit home, he went to the forest and attained self-realization. This chapter discusses about the disappearance of Lord Krishna. When Narada Muni had visited Yudhishthir Maharaj in Hastinapur, he had told Yudhishthir Maharaj that the Supreme Lord descended down in this material world on a mission, and the Pandavas may stay here as long as the Supreme Lord stays, indirectly indicating about the departure of Lord Sri Krishna. Maharaj Yudhishthir, after Narada Muni leaves, he starts to see some bad omens. His thought process started that Arjuna had already left Hastinapur and he had gone to Dwaraka for two reasons. One is to see Lord Krishna and his friends. And the second purpose of Arjuna's visit to Dwaraka was to hear about the next program of the Supreme Lord. Because Pandavas, they are selfless devotees, pure devotees of the Lord. And the only purpose for their existence was simply to increase the pleasure of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So Arjuna had already departed and he hasn't come back yet. So Yudhishthir Maharaj started to feel a little concerned. Yudhishthir Maharaj also notices some inauspicious omens, which we'll see in detail shortly. But an overview is given in the third and the fourth verse about what symptoms made Yudhishthir Maharaj feel within the core of his heart that something untoward had happened. There were fearful change of time and irregularities in seasons. So this is also considered as one of the inauspicious things. We see in modern times, many things happen. In summer, we get rain. In winter, sometimes it feels like summer. Sometimes it gets very cold also during summer, as we experience in the last few years. So these irregularities are not very inauspicious. Srila Prabhupada says even when it rains, rain has to happen at night, and daytime there has to be plenty of sunshine. That's when the crops grow very nicely. Otherwise, if it starts to pour down heavy during the daytime itself, then it will only damage the crops because there is no sunlight. And the crops need both rain as well as sun. So rain, when it happens at an irregular time, it's inauspicious as well. So here we see there is irregularities of the seasons. And he also sees how the nature of the people was also changing. People have become greedy, deceitful, and they are adopting unfair or foul means of livelihood. They are dealing with deception and friendships is mixed with cheating. So these are some general symptoms he's saying. We'll go into detail shortly. And one more, he says, there is even strain and quarreling amongst family members. In Kali Yuga, it's a norm, but in Dwapara Yuga, it is such an exception that he saw this as one of the inauspicious omens. So in this way, Yudhishthira Maharaj sees Arjuna had left and there is no news from him yet. Meanwhile, I'm seeing all these symptoms. Is anything inauspicious going to happen soon? So when Yudhishthira Maharaj sees this, he tells to Bhima that I had sent Arjuna to Dwaraka to see our friends and to know about Lord Krishna's program. It's been 7 months since Arjuna had left for Dwaraka. We haven't heard anything from him back, and he hasn't come back either. And I'm seeing all inauspicious omens. So he puts forth this question to Bhima. As Lord Krishna is executing his plan to quit his earthly pastimes, as Devarishi Narada indicated. Now, Narada Muni as well as Vidura, they had withheld the information of Krishna having departed already. But here, seeing the symptoms alone, as well as deciphering the hidden message of Narada Muni, Yudhishthira Maharaj could understand that Supreme Lord may leave this planet soon. And then he also gratefully remembers it's only because of him that we attained our earthly kingdom, our wives, our lives, family, citizens, victory over enemies, and future higher planets. It's only solely and wholly due to the mercy of Krishna. This is the mode of the Pandavas. Despite them having so much celestial powers, they never forgot about their position as the servants of the Supreme Lord. And then he also points at the different symptoms or inauspicious omens. He tells to Bhima, see the many miseries due to celestial influences, Divyan. So this inauspicious omens, he is observing everywhere. He is observing from the nature, it is celestial. He is observing from the heart of the people, how he feels the nature of the people have changed. He also looks around and sees how animals behave. He'll go into the details soon. So in this way, he is pointing out all these irregularities or abnormal behavior, paranormal behavior that is happening, that he's observing. And he's telling to Bhima that due to celestial influences, earthly reactions, Bauman, bodily pains, Daihikan, one can observe inauspicious things, even observing one's own body, others, animals, nature also. So he says all of this due to celestial influences, Divyan, earthly reactions, Bauman, and bodily pains, Dahikan, which indicate danger in the near future, which will delude our intelligence, Buddhi Mohanam. So in this way, Yudhishthira Maharaj, being the very intelligent and shrewd king, he's observing all this and he's expressing his heart to Bhima. And Yudhishthira Maharaj then also says in elaborate detail about each of these inauspicious omens. He mentions about the symptoms that he could see in his body, in animals, birds, panchabhutas, cattle, deities, and places. These are the different places where he is observing. Once Srila Prabhupada visited a temple, Prabhupada went to take darshan of the deities. And the devotees standing there, the temple president, one of them, he was standing there and he heard Prabhupada talk to the deities. So Prabhupada first asked the deities, are you happy? And then there was a gap, which means Prabhupada was hearing from the deities. And then Prabhupada is putting forth the next question, are they serving you nicely, offering bhoga nicely? And then there was a gap. And then Prabhupada later, he comes back and he says, no, deities are generally happy, but there are some things you need to adjust like that. So great souls, exalted souls, they could observe all this. They could talk to the deities. Prabhupada himself says, if you serve Krishna nicely, understanding that Archa Vigraha is non-different from Krishna himself, one day he will talk to you. So here we see Yudhishthira Maharaj, he's observing the symptoms all around. First he says about his body, the left side of my body, the thighs, arms, and eyes are quivering. Normally you will come across sometimes either early in the morning or sometimes even during the day, some part of your body quivers, like, it shakes, but left side of the body shaking is considered inauspicious. So left side of my body, thighs, arms, and eyes are quivering. Heart palpitations due to fear, which means the heartbeat is actually not going very regular. You can observe that if you are sometimes sleep deprived or you are very tired, you can see the breathing pattern. Very easily you can observe that. So he's seeing these symptoms in his body. And then he says the jackal howling at sunrise. Jackal howling generally is considered very inauspicious, but usually they do at night time. But here he's observing the jackals howling at the sunrise early in the morning, which is considered to be Brahma Muhurta, most auspicious time, but he's seeing inauspicious things and vomiting fire. And the dogs, they are barking fearlessly, which means the influence, bad influence is increasing. That's what it means. The cows are passing on my left, asses are circumambulating me, my horses are weeping. Sometimes you can see animals, they are weeping. Tears coming from them. So here he says, my horses are weeping, the cows are passing on my left, asses are circumambulating me. Then he sees the birds. The pigeon is like a messenger of death. Even though pigeon is considered to be a symbol of love, the pigeons, they appear as if they are messengers of death. The shrieks of owls and their rival crows make my heart tremble. The shrieks of owls and the rival crows, even the crowing, it's making his heart go tremble. So this is some symptoms. He then expresses his observations on the Panchabhutas. He says there is smoke in the sky, the mountains are throbbing, the cloudless thunder. There's no cloud, but one could hear thunder. Normally, thunder happens when there is cloud, rumbling of the cloud. We hear this in the many descriptions in the Puranas, especially in the 10th canto, when Krishna was appearing, the rumbling of the cloud is given. But here he could hear thunder, but there is no clouds in the sky. The wind blows violently and the clouds rain blood. Wind also changes the direction of its blowing in different seasons. Here he's saying but the wind is blowing violently and the clouds, they rain blood. Sun's rays declining and the stars appear to be fighting. Confused living entities appear ablaze. So sun's rays declining goes to show that we need to get optimal level of sunlight all the time. If it reduces, then that is inauspicious. Rivers, tributaries, ponds, reservoirs, and the mind are perturbed. He could see the rivers, reservoirs, tributaries. Normally, when you see a river, it looks very pleasing. But in the rainy season, when it comes with all the mud, flood, when the water gushes, it evokes a different emotion within our heart. Same way, I had the fortune of staying close to a beach for like close to 13, 14 months when I was in Chennai. So one of my favorite time pass was, it was walkable distance. So one of my favorite time pass was, especially on the weekends, I'll just go lie on the seashore and just keep staring at the waves. And I would love watching, some ships or boats going far away, or like observing where the sky meets the ocean in the horizon. You can keep on watching. You will never feel tired. Likewise, in my childhood, I always loved sleeping on an open space and just staring at the sky. I spent years like that. That was always my favorite sleeping spot at night time. I would happily come, sit there and stare at the sky whole night. Whenever I wake, even at night time, I would still look. It looks very pleasing. But the same ocean, if you look at, when it is a tsunami or during certain days, like when the waves are really coming, especially late in the evening when you go, tend to get a little scary. So it's the same things he's observing, but he's saying rivers, tributaries, ponds also. Looking at them, it is supposed to be pleasing, it is supposed to bring about a certain harmony within us, but rather than making us peaceful, all of these are making my mind disturbed. So this is his observation. The ghee no longer ignites fire. Recently, I went to one home to perform a homa, and they had given me camphor. I tried lighting the camphor, and it was very hard. Wood was catching fire much quicker than the camphor. I told them, is this camphor or something else? But it's unfortunate. These days, that's all they sell in the market. So ghee no longer ignites fire. You saw that also. Cattles, calves do not suck the teats of the cows. Normally, calves, they love drinking milk from the mother's udders, but here they are not doing. They're just staring. Nor do the cows give milk. Not only are the calves not interested, the cows are also not giving milk. The bulls take no interest in grazing or in the pasturing grounds, going and eating grasses. They don't take any pleasure. Deities, they seem to be crying in the temple, lamenting and perspiring. Prabhupada said we should never let the deities perspire. If they perspire, it's a big offense and inauspicious things will happen. So one has to be very mindful. The deities seem to be crying in the temple, lamenting and perspiring. They seem about to leave. This is how he sees the mood of the deities. Places, all the cities, villages, towns, gardens, mines, and hermitages are now devoid of beauty and happiness. Same place may be bustling with activity at certain times. Some other times you go, it looks like a dead place. Nothing is happening, like a ghost town. But this is how he observes everything. Even though there are people, everything, everywhere, still it looks very forlorn, very sad. There is no beauty or happiness, even though it's the same place. So in this way, he observes. These 10 verses speak about that. From verse 11 to 20 speaks about how Yudhishthira Maharaj could observe all these inauspicious omens in everything, within himself, animals, panchabhutas, birds, cattle, deities, so on and so forth, the places, everything. And when Yudhishthira Maharaj is thus observing all this and expressing his thoughts to Bhima, Arjuna arrives finally after 7 months from Dwaraka. So Yudhishthira Maharaj could understand that these disturbances definitely are not auspicious. They indicate some great loss. At that time, Arjuna arrives, he comes and he bows down at the feet of Yudhishthira Maharaj. And when Yudhishthira Maharaj looks at Arjuna, lifts him up, he could see Arjuna's face was very dejected. His whole body language was that of grief. And he has never seen Arjuna, same Arjuna who had went to the deep ocean, went to beyond this universe, went to the heavenly planets to assist Indra, who single-handedly took on Nivata Kavachas and killed all of them. That same Arjuna who went to Himalayas, and there he had very bravely fought even with Lord Shiva himself as part of Lord Shiva's pastime. Here he is seeing that same Arjuna coming dejected, and he has never seen Arjuna so down. And his head is still looking down. Tears are gliding down his cheeks. When Yudhishthira Maharaj sees Arjuna in this state, he understood the indications of Narada Muni plus his observations. And now, fearing for the worst, he starts to now ask questions to Arjuna, trying to understand what is going on. So first, Yudhishthira Maharaj asks Arjuna, because Arjuna had just returned back from Dwaraka. He's asking, are our friends, relatives of the Yadu family passing their days in happiness? First, he's asking about his relatives, the Yadus. Then he's going specific. Are our grandfather Surasen, Uncle Vasudev, and all his brothers doing well? Are our aunts, Vasudeva's wives, and their sons and daughters-in-law happy? First, he's asking about Yadus in general. Then he's going one personality after the other. First to Surasena, then Vasudev, all their brothers, then all their wives also, the aunts, Vasudev's wives, and their daughters-in-law, which means all the wives of Krishna. Are Ugrasena, Ridika, Kritavarma, Akrura, Jayanta, Gada, Sharana, Satrujit, all happy. So Pandavas, they had a lot of friends in the Yadu family. So he is singling out each one of those personalities and he's asking this person happy, that person happy. How is Balaram, the protector of the devotees? Sattvatam Prabhu. Sattvatas means devotee. Sattvatam Prabhu means master of the Sattvatas. How are Pradyumna and Aniruddha? Pradyumna is son of Krishna. Aniruddha is grandson. Are they faring well? Are all the chieftain sons of Lord Krishna along with their sons all doing well? Or Shrutadeva, Uddhava, Nanda, Sunanda, and others protected by Krishna and Balarama, Rama, Krishna, Bhujashrayaha, protected by the two mighty arms, Bhuja. Ashraya means shelter, protected, doing well. Do they remember our welfare? In this way, he puts forth the questions inquiring about the well-being of everyone except Krishna. Then he asks, is Lord Govinda the giver of pleasure to the cows and the senses? Bhagavanapi Govindo Brahmanyo Bhaktavatsalaha Kachit Pure Sudharmayam Shukam Aste Shuhrud Vrataha. That Supreme Lord, Bhagavanapi Govinda, who is known as Govinda, Brahmanyo, one who is the protector of all the Brahmanas or the maintainer of the Brahmanas. Brahmanyo Bhaktavatsalaha, one who is very dear to his devotees. Is he doing well? Kachit Pure Sudharmayam, one who enjoys being in Sudharma assembly. Krishna would every day leave his palace, all 16,108, and then they will all become one personality, and Krishna would walk into the Sudharma assembly. This Sudharma hall was originally located, or originally it was there in the heavenly kingdom. And then Krishna brought it down to Dwaraka, just like how he picked Parijata family. So this Sudharma hall was also as part of the construction. It was given to him from the celestial planets. So you will come across like Vishwakarma when he built it. So you will come across these different places which are normally not to be found in earthly kingdom, but they were present specially in Dwaraka for Lord's pleasure. So he's saying, is he enjoying in that Sudharma assembly? Kachit Pure Sudharma Yam Sukam Aste Shuhridvrataha, being surrounded by all his friends and well-wishers. Is Krishna doing well? Lord Krishna and Balaram, they are staying in the Yadu dynasty for the welfare and protection and progress of this entire universe. And all the Yadus being protected by them, they are enjoying Vaikuntha in this earthly planet. So this is how he glorifies Krishna, glorifies the Yadus, as well as simultaneously glorifying the opulences of Dwarakapuri. Then he says, serving Krishna's lotus feet is the main activity. Yatpada Shushrushana Mukhaya Karmana. It's given Yatpada, that Supreme Lord's lotus feet. Shushrushana Mukhya Karmana. Serving the Lord's lotus feet is Mukhya Karmana. That is the only engagement, the most important engagement and the only engagement. In other words, the Yadus, and for that matter, all the pure devotees of the Lord, they subsist themselves, they maintain themselves only to serve the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So he's saying, serving Lord Krishna's lotus feet as their main activity. Queens, this is especially applicable for all the queens of Supreme Lord Krishna. All the 16,108 queens, they maintain themselves simply to give pleasure to Krishna. So keeping Krishna's service to Krishna's lotus feet as their life and soul, all the queens like Satyabhama who induced Krishna to defeat the demigods and bring even Parijata tree, we see, are they doing well? In other words, he is inquiring about Krishna's queens also. Who's the queens of Krishna, whose only life, Mukhya Karmana, is simply Yat Pada Shushrushana. The queens whose only interest is the service of the lotus feet of Krishna, are they doing well? The great heroes of Yadu dynasty, being protected by Krishna, always remain fearless. Therefore, they can treat their feet in the Sudharma family very joyfully, without any fear. So initially, he asked about different personalities, naming them. And then Krishna, and then Yudhishthir Maharaj asks about the welfare of the others, by not directly asking, are the queens doing good or Supreme Lord doing good? But he is asking about their well-being indirectly by glorifying them. Is Krishna still enjoying? Even though this question is still niggling at the back of his mind, he has heard Narada Muni, he had heard Vidura, but he still is not directly asking about Krishna. Is Krishna doing well? He is not asking that. He is asking indirectly that, is Krishna enjoying in the family, being surrounded by his friends? That Supreme Lord, Bhagavan Api Govindo, Brahmanyo Dina Vatsala, that Supreme Lord who is known as Govinda, who is known as Bhaktavatsala, who is the protector of all the Brahmanas, Kachit Pure Sudharmayam, Shukam Aste Shuhridvrataha. Is he enjoying the Sudharma hall, being surrounded by all his friends and well-wishers? So like that, he asks, are the queens, they are actually engaged. Under the protection of Lord Krishna and Balaram, all the Yadus are protected. Of course, Krishna will be happy, and Krishna is still around. This is what he liked to believe. So he says that. And then serving Krishna's lotus feet is the only goal of all the queens. And they encourage Krishna to go defeat the demigods and even bring things which are normally not available in material world. In this example, he is giving Parijata tree. And Krishna and Balaram, they are protecting all the Yadus. So in this way, he is glorifying the influence of Krishna and Balaram, but simultaneously thinking at the back of his mind, is Krishna doing okay? And finally, Yudhishthir Maharaj, after inquired about the well-being of the different personalities in Dwaraka, indirectly inquiring about Krishna's welfare by glorifying Krishna and Balaram's influences, now he shifts his focus to Arjuna, asking, Arjuna, are you okay? And then he asks about the well-being of Arjuna in the form of 10 different questions. And each one of these questions itself is an instruction of moral principle, of Kshatriya Dharma, of Manav Dharma, how a human being is supposed to behave, of Nitya Dharma, Sanatana Dharma, of how a devotee is supposed to behave. So he asks Arjuna 10 questions, one after the other. Is your health all right? Because he's saying, Arjuna, very dejected, very forlorn, very pale and anxious. So he's saying, is your health okay? You appear to have lost your bodily luster. Were you disrespected or neglected? Why? Because normally when you go to a guest's home, 1 day, 2 day, fine, they can take care. After that, they have their own business. If you stay for too long in a guest's home, then naturally they won't be able to sustain the same level of respect which they had shown in your beginning first 2 days of stay there. Now, because Arjuna had stayed there for 7 months, Yudhishthir Maharaj is asking that question, that were you disrespected or neglected due to your long stay in Dwaraka? That's what he implies, but he's just asking that were you disrespected or neglected in Dwaraka? Vedic culture says Atiti Devo Bhava. Atiti means, Titi means a moment. an auspicious moment or a pre-planned moment, so to speak. Atiti means unexpectedly. Nobody had booked an appointment. Somebody is just showing up at your door. That's Atiti. That's guest. Atiti Deva Bhava. This is the injunction of the Vedas. So if somebody comes to you, even uninvited, that can even be your enemy, Deva Bhava. You should treat them as Devatas. Lord has come and then you serve them nicely. So this is the instruction that's given to the hosts. But Vedic culture is holistic. There are instructions that's given to the guests also. For the hosts, they have to treat the guests as if the Lord has come. But as far as the guests are concerned, the guests are not supposed to overstay in the home. So that injunction is also there. Otherwise, everyone will get exploited. So Vedic scriptures, they are very pragmatic. They are very practical. They are very contemporary. Nobody can find loophole in any of the instructions, and nobody can exploit the concession that's given in the Vedic scriptures either. Third question, were you addressed with unfriendly words? That somebody told you something in a threatening way? Did you fail to give charity that you had promised? Indirectly, all these instructions are for us that we should not go back on our word. We should not address others with unfriendly words. We should not disrespect or neglect others, so on and so forth. Fifth question, could you not protect deserving candidates, which is brahmanas, children, cows, women, or the deceased? Were you not able to protect any of them as a Kshatriya when they sought your shelter? Sixth, have you contacted a woman of impeachable character? Did you contact someone who's with a questionable character? Have you improperly treated a deserving woman? For Kshatriya dharma is if a woman comes and approaches a Kshatriya asking for shelter, asking to marry, a Kshatriya is supposed to reciprocate there. So he's asking, have you improperly treated a deserving woman? Again, terms and conditions apply. Deserving woman. Have you been defeated by someone who is inferior or equal to you? Have you taken your meals alone without feeding elders and children? Again, it's an instruction. Have you committed some abominable and unpardonable mistake? Now, Yudhishthir Maharaj is super intelligent. You know that story in Mahabharata about how once Pandavas, they were all feeling very thirsty, and each one goes to fetch some water for the remaining brothers who are standing a little far away from a reservoir of water. One after the other, they come, they try to take the water, but then they are seemingly attacked by some celestial power and they lie down dead, quote unquote. And finally, Yudhishthir Maharaj comes, and then one personality says, and he says, you can't touch the water until you answer my questions. And he asks him, Yudhishthir Maharaj answers everything precisely and to the point. Because of that, he was able to please Yamaraj, as well as he is able to bring back all his brothers alive, back to life. Very intelligent personality. He is Dharmaraj. Yudhishthir Maharaj had asked the question to Vidura about the welfare of Yadus as well as Krishna. Vidura answered everything except answering about Krishna's welfare. Narada Muni comes, speaks about everyone, just indicating about the mission, and that mission of the Lord is already complete. Yudhishthir Maharaj by then had concluded. The worst had come to pass. So Yudhishthir Maharaj actually didn't have to ask these many questions. Yudhishthir Maharaj could have figured out, he had figured out even then. Still, Yudhishthir Maharaj don't want to accept the fact that Krishna had left, because only purpose of their existence is simply to serve Supreme Lord Krishna. So even though Yudhishthir Maharaj knew about all this, he had been somehow hoping against hope, thinking that everything else is okay, but Krishna is still around. This is what he wanted to believe. So he's asking everything, asking about welfare of this person, that person, everyone except coming to Krishna, because he knew something is wrong from what he could understand, from how Vidura responded, from how Narada Muni responded. He saw the omens. He saw Arjuna dejected. All of them is like, no, one red flag, next, 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 next. He could understand. And finally, he's inquiring about everyone. And then he asked 10 questions. For each question, Arjuna is like, he's not opening his mouth, but he could understand. No, that's not the reason. This is not the reason. This is not the reason. Finally, when all the options run out, he had asked whatever possible reasons there may be for Arjuna's dejection, despondence. Finally, Yudhishthir Maharaj asks about Krishna's disappearance. He says, are you feeling empty? Oh, Arjuna, are you feeling empty due to losing your most intimate friend, Lord Krishna? I can think of no other reason for your dejection. This is how Yudhishthir Maharaj concludes his inquiry. And this is how this chapter finishes. After asking everything, finally he asks. He didn't want to ask him, but he know it's inevitable. So he is asking, oh Arjuna, are you feeling so dejected because you have lost your most intimate friend, Lord Sri Krishna? Thank you. We'll continue discussing next chapter next week. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki jai. Samaved Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki jai. Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.